We shall now invite Ms. Vincent Esther Xueming from the Bachelor of Arts Education program to deliver her valedictory speech.
Ms. Chen Lai-Fang, Permanent Secretary, Education Policy, Ministry of Education and Chairperson, NIE Council. Ms. Loh Kagek, Deputy Director General of Education, Schools, Director of Schools, Ministry of Education. Professor Lee Sing Kong, Director, NIE. Distinguished guests, fellow graduates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to one and all. It gives me great pleasure and honor to stand here before you today to represent the class of 2012. I'm Esther Vincent from the Bachelor of Arts in Education program with a major in literature and a minor in English. I would like to begin with a quote by Henry Brooke Adams, American historian and intellectual. "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." Bearing this quote in mind, my speech will aim to consider the purpose of teaching, which I feel is all about learning and growing for both student and teacher. So, why teaching? I'm sure that each of us would have our own unique reasons for joining the teaching profession. For myself, I will be brutally honest and admit that my original reason for enrolling at NIE was not completely a noble one. I was being pragmatic. I had graduated from Temasek Polytechnic with a diploma in media and was working at a marketing firm. However, I had grown disenchanted with the media industry. I wanted to further my studies, but sadly, my parents could not afford to send me to university, and my polytechnic grades did not qualify me for a scholarship. Fortunately, I learned about the BA program at NIE, and what further motivated me to enroll was the prospect of studying literature, not teaching it, which was my first love at secondary school. Not the students, but the subject. That was my understanding or misunderstanding of teaching then. I don't know if any of you here share my sentiments, but that was me 4 years back. Today, I can safely say, and the ministry will be glad to know, that my outlook on teaching has changed for the better. While my education at NIE has fueled and honed my passion for and proficiency in the subject, the practicums, especially the last one, TP2, has transformed my attitude, perception, and purpose with regards to teaching. I'm sure that for most of us, TP2 was the make or break factor before we launched out into the deep. And I'm thankful that I was fortunate enough to have a very supportive group of practicum buddies whom I still dearly miss. Back to the question, why teaching? To answer this, I would like to share a personally inspiring experience I had with a student, Mark, during the last week of TP2. During 9 of the 10 weeks of practicum, I never paid particular attention to Mark. He was just another name and face in my literature class. He suffered from ADHD, and most of the time would either be sleeping in class or highly distracted, doing everything other than the task at hand. Yet, he was such a sweet and polite boy who would always greet me outside of class with warmth and candor. One day, while I was reviewing the class's literature class test score, Mark's grades caught my eye, 5/20. At the rate he was going, I didn't see how I could let him sit for his mid-year exams without doing anything about it. So, I decided to speak to him and call him out for one-on-one literature remedial. To cut the long story short, Mark responded positively to my intervention and even demonstrated his commitment with a 5-hour literature session, with breaks in between, of course. To this day, I am keeping a close eye on him and have been following up with him to encourage him to keep up this change of attitude and change of heart towards his studies and towards life in general. What I have learned from this experience is that sometimes all a teacher needs to do with an errant student is to take the time to get to know him better, because sometimes that little bit of extra attention and concern may be all it takes to spur them to success. And one of the most rewarding things about teaching is watching your students learn and grow, because you too learn and grow with them. Before you cry out propaganda, I want to acknowledge that on the flip side, teaching is hard work, time-consuming, and can be extremely stressful and frustrating to the point of insanity. The story of our lives would no doubt be managing that one difficult colleague, that set of unreasonable parents, and that gang of defiant students, on top of dealing with seemingly endless paperwork, marking, CCAs, lesson preparation, the list goes on. At the end of the day, we are exhausted, and rightly so. How much of ourselves would we have left after spreading ourselves thin between meeting the demands of work and family? Over time, would we still be able to find purpose and meaning in teaching? Or would we rue the day we signed on the dotted line? Yet, I believe that we walked into this profession with our eyes wide open. We knew what was coming, we made a choice to be teachers. The question now lies in whether or not we become purposeful teachers who can infect our students with a passion and zest for life and learning. With this, I would like to conclude by bringing you back to the earlier quote, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." In retrospect, perhaps it's not so much a question of impacting the future or even about leaving a legacy. That would be too ambitious, idealistic, arrogant even. Forget eternity. Today is what matters. The little things, the small successes we have on a day-to-day basis in our teaching career. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day. Today, as we officially leave behind the safety and comforts of being students to take up the daunting task of teaching professionals, let us always remain humble and teachable, constantly striving to be better, to learn, to grow. And what better way to express our gratitude than to thank everyone who has played a part in contributing to our growth as students, teachers, and individuals. Our loved ones, our parents, our family members, lecturers, classmates, friends, colleagues, practicum schools, thank you for everything. Ladies and gentlemen, though I now bid you farewell, remember that this is not the end, but rather, it is the beginning of many wonderful things to come. I wish you all the best on this journey of teaching, learning, and growth. Thank you.